Back live tonight here on In Focus. We begin with this story now. International Relations Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor reaffirmed South Africa's support for Palestine during a debate in the National Council of Provinces. She was speaking during a question and answer session where she stressed the country's foreign policy stance. The issue of Israel's ambassador to South Africa was also debated at length. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo starts us off.
International Relations Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor has reiterated the call for African voices to be included on the United Nations Security Council. The minister has also reflected on how the International Criminal Court has the duty to apply a standardized approach to human rights abuses, and if this were truly the case, a warrant of arrest would have already been issued against Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and others.
On 27 October this year, our country was among more than 2/3 of the member states of the United Nations that called for an immediate ceasefire in the General Assembly. This decision of the General Assembly has been ignored. It is impossible for us to continue to proclaim the importance of international law and the importance of the UN Charter for some situations and not for others, as if the rule of law only applies to a select few. For international law to be credible, it should be uniformly applied and not be selective.
Political parties are divided over the response the South African government should take in the Israel-Hamas conflict, which has so far claimed more than 10,000 civilian lives in Palestine, most of whom are children. The EFF says the most apt reaction to the escalating humanitarian crisis is to expel the Israeli ambassador to our country as a form of solidarity.
We should recall the ambassadors. Everybody, we should fire the ambassador of Israel. We can't be friends with Israel until they establish a society in compliance with international law on one hand, and they recognize the right of Palestinians to coexist. I wish for once in our lives we can be on the right side of history.
But the IFP says creating a diplomatic row in the middle of an escalating crisis must be avoided at all costs.
As the IFP, we want to caution the South African government that isolationism in a time of war is not a solution. Recalling or dismissing ambassadors merely amounts to regressive diplomacy, which in turn complicates the negotiations. If South Africa is truly to be a trusted mediator, committed to reaching a negotiated peace, all parties to the conflict must be treated in the same way.
The Democratic Alliance has chosen only to condemn the 7th of October attack by Hamas on Israeli civilians, but has remained mum on the continued loss of life in Gaza.
The Democratic Alliance stands in solidarity with both Palestinians and Israelis who seek a two-state solution. We embrace rationality based on peaceful coexistence for a secure Israel and a free Palestine. We seek the triumph of rational forces committed to peaceful coexistence on both sides of this terrible conflict. That is why we stand united in our condemnation of the brutality unleashed on the Israeli people by Hamas on the 7th of October.
The conflict is also expected to dominate discussions at the two-day G7 meeting currently underway in Japan. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo in Johannesburg.